Alex has been asked to change the pivot table to actually show the number of events attended by each organization. We're going to click back onto our pivot table sheet, and we're going to take our count of last name and drop that off the pivot table. And instead, we're going to pop the number of events into values. At first glance, that seems to have worked just fine. But you'll see it's doing a count of events rather than a sum, which is a bit odd. Let's click in one of those values. Right-click and instead change that to summarize values by sum. And we can see there definitely is a problem, because when it tries to add the values up, we're actually getting 0. Why has that happened? Well, let's go and have a look at our data and see if we can work it out. Having a look at the events column, the data looks fine. But where you have numeric values, by default, they align to the right. And when you see numeric values aligning to the left, that can be an indication that they're being treated as text. And that is exactly what has happened in this situation. There are a lot of reasons why what looks like numeric values are treated as text. It can be that they've been converted to text values, and a simple case of converting them back to numerics. Or it can be that there are other text characters in the cell which we can't necessarily see. Last time, we took a little bit of a guess. This time, we'd like to actually diagnose exactly what the problem is so that we can apply the correct fix. This time, we're going to run a few useful diagnostics. And the first one we're going to do is to check if those values are in fact numeric or not. To do that, we're going to click into J1. And we're just going to write a little heading, numeric, and we're going to use a function called ISNUMBER. ISNUMBER checks if a value in a cell is numeric. There's a similar function called ISText, which checks if a value is in fact text, in other words, if it's not numeric. We're going to use the ISNUMBER function in this case. Type IS and choose ISNUMBER. And then we're going to click on I2 and press enter. We'll see straight away that the first one says false. And when we double click to copy down, we see they all say false. So now we know that the problem is definitely that none of these numbers are in fact numeric, even though they look like they are. The next question is the problem that there are other characters in the cell, or is it just that they've been converted to text, in which case it's fairly a simple fix. Another diagnostic tool we can use is the LEN function. The LEN function tells us how many characters are in the cell, whether we can see them or not. Let's do that next. I'm going to just type len into K1, and then we're going to type equals len and tab. And that's an abbreviation for length. We're going to click on I2 and press enter. We'll see that the first value actually does contain only one character, which means all that's happened is that has somehow been converted to text. And we can change that back. But let's just check the others. And we'll see that actually, for the rest of them, we actually have additional characters in the cells. And we're going to have to clean those out before we can convert these numbers back to numerics. We did see some great tools, the clean function and the trim function, for getting rid of extra characters. But we were just taking a guess last time. This time, we want a more scientific approach. We want to work out what characters are actually in there. So we need another diagnostic tool. We can see there's nothing in front of the numbers. So it's something at the back that's a problem. What we could do is use our right function to isolate the last character in each cell. But the problem is, we still can't see what it looks like. So we're still going to end up with what looks like a blank in each cell. We need some way of converting these characters to something that we can see. Before we can do that, I'm just going to recap the basics of ASCII codes that we looked at in the discussion video. And for your convenience, we've actually put a little ASCII table into this workbook. As we said before, when computers store values, they can only store them in binary. So it uses a kind of code. For example, just scrolling down here a little bit, the binary number 1 followed by 5 zeros is a space. Binary, however, is quite hard to work with. So normally we work with the decimal equivalents. A space is actually the number 32 in ASCII code. And if we scroll down and look at a few others, you'll see, for example, that a capital A, uppercase A, is the decimal 65. The function we need to take a character and convert it to the decimal equivalent is the code function. And that's what's going to help us identify what those extra characters are in our data. Coming back to data 2, and in L1, type code. We're going to use a combination of the write function to extract the last character and the code function to convert that to its decimal code. Type equals, and the last thing we're going to do is convert to code. So put that function first, and then we're going to put write. The text we're working with is in I2, and we just want the one character on the right. Close the brackets, and close the brackets again. We're going to click enter, and we're going to copy it down. These two we immediately recognize. Those are 32s. Those are our ASCII codes for space. So we know at the end of each of these cells is a space. The 51 we didn't look at, but that is in fact the number 3. No problems there. But what is this 160? And how do we get rid of it? In the next video, we're going to combine a variety of cleanup tools to get rid of these 160s, tidy up our events, and finish off our pivot table.